What's up guys, MikeCoco back here bringing you guys a new video on the new Demigod hero system. This system was introduced in the latest patch, and the easiest way to think of it is that it is a tier above your typical normal slash legendary slash mythic hero. And instead, it is a hero that is equipable to another hero. Don't think of it as a standalone hero, think of it as a sort of like a knight, and that's the best way to think of a demigod hero. You're not able to actually use the demigod hero by itself in the game because it requires a host first, and the general process is simply just going to any hero, and then any hero that has the Agent of God Knight slot available, and then selecting your demigod from there. Which means that if your hero is not at, I think, mythic grade, then you're not able to use it because you need to be at least a mythic rank to be able to equip the demigod. So the dev team on Facebook, they posted a general guide for demigod already, and I think that's a pretty decent guide. I will go over a few things. So the first one is obviously how do you create this demigod. So you use essentially 4 heroes which are at level 100 and mythic rank 4. That's minimum. They can be like level 101, 125, it doesn't matter. And you need all of these 4 heroes to be able to create this demigod. You also need 10,000 demigod essence and 100 million gold. Demigod essence is found in the Abyssal Inferno, but that's only one time clear. The more constant renewal of demigod essence comes from Explore. So with that said, let's go right into it. So the demigod has a few features. Obviously it has no equipment available because you, as I mentioned before, you have to equip the demigod so that it uses one of your current heroes as a host. And so what this means is that in battle now, demigod Dragonlord Michael will use the equipment of my current Michael and will use the weapon of my current Michael. Demigods have no weapon type, so despite the fact that he is using Michael's spear, it's not really it's only using it for, I guess, the damage, but it doesn't take the other attributes of the spear. So with that said, as a demigod, Michael will, or the demigod version of Michael will obviously have the active skill of whatever weapon is, or whatever active is on your weapon right now. So right now it's the typical dragon weapon active, and demigod Michael will have that same active when you enter battle. So with the demigod, there are a few things I want to note. So the first one is there's like a bunch of stats here. The demigod itself doesn't have stats. These stats are added upon to your current hero. So because I'm adding this onto Michael, my Michael will gain all of these stats. When Michael transforms or descends into Dragonlord Michael, he'll gain all of these stats that are added upon Michael's current stats. So they don't override it, they're added upon. And one thing that's I found really strange, I did a little bit of testing, and it seems like once you transcend into Demigod Michael, there seems to be like a 24 to 25% hidden increase in critical damage. It says here it's 2.6%, 2.06%, but when I was testing it, the crits always did around 25% more than whatever it was specified earlier. Like right now, critical damage at 237. When I was testing it, I got 262 every single time. So there seems to be some hidden stats that are unavailable or that are not described well. But yeah, that's the basis of that. And obviously the demigod has its own skill. This is probably easier if I actually go into a battle with this. So the way that I've been testing is in Mythic Raid. So essentially the general process of using a demigod is you utilize its skill before it's descended into demigod. So when it's at its current rank, I guess I'll call it mythic, you use its skill, or if you hit an enemy, you'll fill up this little gauge here. and let's say I use a skill, it will fill up the gauge to a third of the bar, and then I'll skip my turn. And then every time I use the skill, or every time I hit a player, the gauge will go up. You probably will see it on the next turn. Hopefully he doesn't get stunned. And yeah, there you can see that it went up a third. And then if you hit someone again, it'll go up another third, and that means the bar is full. You're able to use or descend into the Demigod version on the next turn. Now, you're not able to use the same Demigod twice in the same battle, so that means I can't have Michael using Demigod Michael, then equip Prince Arthur with Demigod Michael, and then Ione with Demigod Michael. I can only have Demigod Michael equipped to one hero in my entire battle. So if I have two, it won't let me put them in the same team. Now, once I hit this, it's going to descend into Demigod Michael, and interestingly enough, he actually becomes typeless as well, because the weapon is typeless, meaning that despite the fact that he takes the stats of the spear, he won't be affected by things like Sarah's attacks. Typically on the first turn, Sarah will always stun lock the melee heroes, but as you can see, Michael is not stun locked. It was not caused by the trigger of the white ring. It's because he is weaponless. And then once you get here, obviously you can see his skill. The skill says deal 200% physical damage, and a 3x3 decreases attack and defense by 50% and increases attack by 75% for 2 turns, and for 300 fury. And his original mythic skill is to increase the attack of melee heroes by or all heroes by 5% and up to a cap of 20%. So the mythic skill of the original hero is retained as long as it is continuous. So as you can see, my Michael earlier has the Phoenix mythic skill, and it's still retained even when Michael transforms. But note that the descended Michael doesn't have access to the original Michael skill. I can't set up the shield. There's no way for me to use the shield except for pretty much using the weapon proc shield. But they pretty much, once you transform into Demigod, you have no access to the original hero's skill. So as you can see there, the weapon active procced, and that's pretty much it for the usage of a Demigod. Now, the other things I want to talk about are the zodiac signs, and this is slightly confusing. Essentially what it is it's like a skill tree based on the skill point systems in your achievement tab. Where is it? This one? Actually more like this one. But essentially you pay Demigod essence and gold, and you can increase certain skills or stats on the Demigod. So here I have increased maximum physical attack. Here's HP plus 100. Again, this is obviously going to be quite costly to rank all of it. I believe they all go to a maximum of level 5. So as you can see, each of them will probably cost at the very least 50,000 gold. It probably increases, like it scales up. So there's that. Now, the Demigod Michael can also be transcended as well, but you require another Demigod Michael, and it's always 100% success rate. So in essence, to get from A to EX, you need 4 Dragon Lord Michaels, or no, you need 3 because the current system gives you one. As soon as you finish a storyline, I believe, I forgot to mention this earlier, but when you finish a storyline, I believe it gives you a Demigod for free. Yep. So you need 3 more Demigods, each of which require level 100 rank EX mythic heroes. Actually, you probably don't need rank 4. It's probably just rank 1. But regardless, that means that since each mythic descent takes 15 days, and you need, in the worst case scenario, you need 4 of these. And because you're creating 4 Demigod Michaels, you actually need 12 of these mythic heroes. And 12 times 15, that's 180 days, which factors out to 6 months. So you need a total of 6 months in the worst case to rank from A to EX. And I'll go into this a little bit later about why I'm saying this. But I'll talk about that a little bit later because it's more like opinion based. But the other thing to note is that you can actually use Doppelganger Queens. If you transcend them to EX, they can actually like take the place of one of the current heroes required for the Demigod, I guess, creation. But it can only replace one, and obviously to get from A to EX, it's probably not that easy anyway. But that's why I said in the worst case you'll need 4. In the best case scenario, you only need 3 of those mythic heroes. Probably for Michael, everyone will be choosing this guy Ro, because all the others are easier to get somewhat, because they were like earlier seasons. And to actually level up a Demigod, what you need to do is go to Fuse, go to Hero Fusion, and if you select heroes, you can see that it increases the level. Mythic heroes provide you, I think, like 25 million EXP, and regular heroes give you like 5 million. And the Doppelgangers, you can also fuse Doppelganger Queens. They also provide the same EXP as a mythic hero. So that's pretty much it for the general basis and the use of demigods. And I'm gonna go into a little bit more about why I think the system is nice, but I don't think Michael is worth investing in. So the reason why is because, like I mentioned earlier, it's gonna take you roughly 6 months to get from A to EX as a free player. If you're a paying player, you can obviously get Michael from premium hires and whatnot. So it's gonna make that process a lot easier. But for free players, the only way to get from A to EX is to constantly perform Mythic Descents, and it takes 6 months, and you need all of those heroes, and that's assuming you have all of those heroes already pulled somehow. Let's just say you're very lucky and you manage to pull all 12 of those heroes, and then you need to level them all to level 100. You need to Mythic Descent each and every one of them, and by the time that you actually get Demigod Michael to EX, the next set of demigods will probably be out. And the reason why Demigod Michael is not great in my opinion is because he only provides damage. You guys should know that I prefer utility over damage any day. So the fact that he only provides damage is really bad, because any hero can provide damage, and his skill is very mediocre. Increased attack by 75%, decreases attack and defense by 50%. Like, we have this effect basically everywhere. Almost every hero has this now. And 200% physical damage in a 3x3 is not exactly fantastic, especially when you consider Michael's original skill is 300% physical damage, like 325% at level 125. So even at damage, he's not that great. At rank A, of course. Once you hit rank EX, his strength stats shoots up like 40,000. But again, that's 6 months, and you have to be willing to use up all the dragonhearts that you gain within that time and spend it all on converting into Dragon Lord Michael, which in my opinion is just not useful. There are a few more demigods coming out, or that are already released in the Korean version of the game, and they are far better than Michael simply because of their skill utility. I'll probably link a link to the description of where I found it, but yeah, I don't think Dragon Lord Michael is exactly useful in any case. And even then, picking which hero to use or to equip the demigod to is kind of difficult as well, because his skill is not great, and it also means that once you descend into demigod, you can't use the original hero's skill. You have to sort of choose a hero that doesn't really do, or doesn't really need the skill that often. Now, because Michael is obviously a damage dealer, it would make sense to place him as a knight for another damage dealer, for example, like Lucida, because if you put it on, let's say, someone like Michael himself, then you lose access to the shield, which is probably one of the biggest things that he has right now. If you give it to PA, he also loses his own debuff, or his own buff. You apply to Kunoichi, she loses her poison dot. You apply it to Zhao, he loses her his Fury Steel. So it seems like the best case is simply just to equip it to another damage dealer, for example, Lucida, because they pretty much do the exact same thing. They just provide damage. And one last thing to note is that if you're in auto battle, the AI will always attempt to descend into Demigod whenever possible. So just keep that in mind. If you do choose to equip it onto someone that has an important skill, do note that they aren't able to use that skill as soon as they're able to descend into Demigod. So I think I covered everything about this. I think it's a pretty it's an interesting system, of course, but I think Michael himself is just not useful at this current stage, especially for free players, because it requires so many resources and so much time investment. It's very likely that we'll get at least the next Demigod within the next 6 months. So by the time that you actually transcend Dragonlord Michael to EX and rank into level 100, the new Demigod's already released, and you will be kicking yourself for wasting all those resources, because the system is very resource intensive. I will say that. And I think that's pretty much it. I covered most of the things for Demigod. And actually, there's one last thing I didn't mention. You can actually extract Demigods as well. You get 5,000 Demigod Essence. Obviously, not exactly worth it unless you already have it at EX. Because creating a Demigod requires 10k. So, like, why would you lose half of your essence? So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Demigod system. I'm probably gonna have a video out soon for Abyssal Inferno, but the problem with that is it's difficult to say which hero, like which floors I should release. I could just do every single floor up to 40, or at least attempt to, but that's gonna be difficult, and I know like certain people are struggling at specific floors, and I'll probably address that. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the Demigod video, guys. Peace. Hey guys, one last thing I forgot to mention for Demigod, which is something I knew. I was missing something, but I just forgot what, is how this 200% is actually calculated. I was so focused on testing it, I actually forgot to give you guys the results. So it seems like this 200% damage is based off of the hero's attack. So if we were assuming that the Demigod did not have this additional plus 3,000 strength or whatever, then the attack of 200% would be based off of this attack here, which is roughly like what, 8 times 200, 16 mil, somewhere around there. So that's how much it would hit. But because the Demigods have their own stats as well, like their strength boost, it does mean that this number is not exactly accurate, because as soon as you descend into Demigod, this number probably goes up by a certain amount. Unfortunately, I don't know what that amount is, because it probably changes based on the hero. I believe at one point when I was running like this setup, it increased the damage by like 1 million flat. But it all depends on the stat here. So basically the 200% is based off of this plus whatever strength stat you get from here. So that's just what I wanted to clarify. Because it is kind of confusing. It just says 200% physical damage, and you don't see any stats here. So like, what is it exactly referring to? Where is the damage? So it is off of this this value and the additional stats from the Demigod. So yeah, now that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Peace.